Hello and welcome. Very excited to have everyone with us today. We are here to talk about submitting a program proposal specifically for Campus Home Live 2024, which is taking place June 22nd through the 25th in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Thank you for joining us. So as I said, we're going to talk about submitting your best program proposal. As a way of introduction, my name is Amanda Miller. I use she, her pronouns, and I serve as the Director for Residential and Academic Engagement at Northwestern University. I am also the Programming Committee Administrative Chair for the Campus Home Live 2024 Program Committee. And I'm joined by my colleague.
Thanks, Amanda. And I'm Holly Stapleton. I'm the Senior Director of Business Operations and Chief of Staff at the Akuai Home Office, and I'm the staff liaison to the Program Committee.
All right. Well, welcome. We are here to talk about the conference milestones today, but also just some tips and tricks for submitting your conference program proposal. The conference program proposal is live on the Akuai website. We will drop the link in the chat for those of you who are present. That call for programs opened on October 17th. And so with that, we will have the proposal open until January 5th. And so this gives folks a chance as we look at maybe some time off during the winter. Maybe you're not bogged down at work and you can really take some time and really think about what would a proposal look like for you, thinking about the work you're doing on campus, what you want to share with your colleagues across the United States and the globe. Our plan is to, once that call for programs closes, we'll talk a little bit about that process and what that looks like for deciding which programs make it to the conference. But presenters will be notified in late February about their status at the conference. And then with that, we'll have some tips and tricks and some resources for our presenters that we'll be sharing in March through April as you prepare for the conference in June. Registration is also opening soon, so watch your newsletters and the website for more information. So a little bit about our conference last year. Holly's going to share some of our data just about Campus Home Live in Portland, about some of our statistics of who our audience was, and then I'll walk you through a proposal and what that will look like. We'll share a demo of how to submit that proposal and talk a little bit more about the program types for the conference this year. Holly.
Great. Thanks, Amanda. So to kick off here, we wanted to give everyone an idea of how many folks are accepted versus submitted in any given year. And you'll see in this slide that it really depends. We've kind of trended higher, definitely in the virtual space, but for 2021, for some reason, we must have gotten a lot of applications that year. And then last year we had an 83% acceptance rate, which was really great. We got a lot of proposals, but we also had more session spots than we did in previous years to account for an audience that we thought would be closer to normal. So really good chances of being accepted. And I expect that we'll probably be between last year and probably one of the pre-COVID years in terms of percentage for the coming year. So this is some information on our registration data as it relates to education level. So you'll see here, not terribly surprising given who our membership is. Our delegate population was generally composed of folks with a four-year degree, master's degree, doctoral degree, with the most people having either a master's or a doctorate. So again, really consistent with what we know about the field, and that's who we typically see from an educational level. You see here again, some things related to registration, and this is regional representation. The one thing I'll say about this is sometimes it correlates with location, sometimes it doesn't. You can see in 23, which we were in Portland, we had a strong showing by Northwest Akuo, which makes a lot of sense. We also had a very strong showing from Siho and Glakuho. Also not that unusual. Those are two of our bigger regions in addition to Nyakuo. So again, it relates to location and proximity. It also is related to how much someone wants to go to a location. So Siho is our biggest region. So 20% of those folks were in town for the conference. Great. So target topics, and this is something that we started last year. The topics that we selected for 23 and are continuing on for 24 relate to our Future the Profession initiative, which is something that has informed all sorts of things, including our new strategic plan that's coming out in 24. So you see here in this little diagram that there are 8 spaces. Those are the topical areas that you will be choosing when you submit your proposal for a session. We also added an additional 3 areas because we thought that we would need those buckets to account for areas that are of interest for the field. And those are corporate and affiliate partnerships, leadership engagement, and residence education. The Future of the Profession areas plus those 3, we believe, are encompassing enough to really categorize all programs that we would receive at the conference. So that's what you can expect on the application.
Additionally, on the application for your submission, you'll see a section for our core curriculum within ACUHO-I. So for those who might not be as familiar, we wanted to give you a quick overview of what this core curriculum is. It's really the information that our campus professionals just need to know, thinking about 12 different topic areas as we think about kind of a robust knowledge across the portfolio of many housing and residence life departments. So with that, within the core curriculum, there are some target areas that you'll see here on this page with some subcategories. In the actual abstract, when you're submitting it, you will be asked to select a core competency, a primary and a secondary. And so in addition to sitting within those larger topic areas, we'll ask you to kind of think about how does that fit within there. You see the 12 core competencies in blue, there's subdomains in black, and then some of the core content areas in green here. If you want to learn more about this, this is located on the ACUHO-I website. We will drop the link in the chat for those of you who are present. But you can take some time and kind of dig in on these core competencies as you're thinking about what that topic area might be, the work you're doing, and kind of where it might fit within this core competency. So additionally, within that, on the abstract, you'll also be asked to look at a target audience. And as we think about how ACUHO-I has really kind of tried to think about our target audience, we think about it in a few different ways, kind of paraprofessionals, undergraduate and graduate attendees, our new professionals, new being kind of that 0 to 3 years. We oftentimes see these folks in maybe a resident director style role or a coordinator role. Additionally, advancing professionals. These are oftentimes folks who have been in the field for about 3 to 7 years, may still be at that entry level, may be aspiring or in an early mid-level position, but still kind of growing and learning within those positions. And then we get into our mid-level categories. And so thinking about the mid-level really as 8 or more years within the field, or maybe in the middle of your org chart. And so we have emerging professionals, folks that might be new to the mid-level, maybe just exploring that space, versus our more seasoned mid-level professionals. Recognizing that that might be a larger group of folks who maybe have been in the mid-level for a few years. And then that next level being our senior leadership. So our SHOs, those folks who are making some pretty large decisions for the entire unit that you might work within. And so thinking about who you want or who might be the best audience for your proposal can be a really important part of the process. And really thinking about who is that target area. Are you really thinking of speaking to new professionals as they're working with undergraduate students, or is it maybe something that sits more in that mid-level category in a process or procedure?
Great, I think it's my turn. So another aspect of the application or the call for proposals that is actually new this year that folks should be aware of is that Campus Home Live, yet again, this was also true in 23, will be offering continuing education or CE credits for the Student Affairs Education Certification. So when you do your application or your proposal, you will be asked to select the area or domain that best fits your proposal. These are the different domains listed here. In the document that we have on the call for proposals page, the proposal assistance guide, there is a hyperlink there so that you can learn more about these areas if you want to kind of dig in further and make sure you're selecting the right bucket. But really, this is about making sure that you choose the thing that you think is closest, and we'll kind of evaluate from there. For those who submit a CFP, If you are selected, your program will be vetted for eligibility for CE credit. There's nothing additional that you need to do. Again, if you are accepted and you say, yes, I want to do this, you will be vetted for this. And if you are determined to be CE eligible, you will be contacted by the Kauai Home Office to kind of know what that means and for those next steps.
So we're going to dive in to the actual submission and review process. This first section we're going to talk about, just for your reference, as someone who might be looking at how do I want to go about putting together my program proposal, wanted to kind of give you a view behind the curtain of, for those who are review coordinators or just reviewers in general, what they're looking for when they're kind of determining what makes the most sense for a program proposal. And so all proposals are kind of scored 1 to 4, 4 being you've done a really great job, 1 being like we could do some work. So each proposal is looked at for just the quality of depth and clarity and conciseness in the proposal. And we'll walk through what a robust proposal looks like. Recognizing, does the outline shared match the core competency that was selected? And so when you're thinking about those core competencies, really making sure that those jive with the description you have. Does the description, you'll be asked to put together a little description that goes into the app, does that match with what we're seeing in the outline? Sometimes we have an idea and then our outline maybe takes a different direction. So taking some time to really think about, are those things coming together? When it comes to learning outcomes, are they clear? Are they achievable? Are they well developed, and will they allow the learner to really achieve those learning outcomes? And then thinking about the format, when we think about learning outcomes, when we're thinking about a proposal, and we'll see this in the outline, how are we engaging learners in that process? 50 minutes of a lecture, you can get a lot of information out, but how are the learners really having a moment to kind of sit with that, reflect on it? And what is some of that methodology for engaging the audience? Recognizing if the content's appropriate for the target audience, focusing on an issue. Something we'll talk about as a pro tip is really thinking about, how is this applicable to more than just one campus? And so thinking about an issue, maybe not a specific thing, but how does that then relate to other campuses if you're telling a story for your specific campus? The application, kind of building off that, and then that outline, and then having multiple perspectives, if that's something that's applicable for you. Oftentimes when we see multiple institutions represented, that can really offer a robust picture of how something might work, but recognizing not every institution might have the ability to see multiple perspectives. So where that's possible, we love to see it. So here you see a description. And so you'll be asked to kind of put together a few sentences to describe what the program is going to be about. This is a really great way for our reviewers to kind of have a sense overarching, what should they expect from this proposal? This also, if your program is accepted, will be what goes into the conference app. So this is also what draws people to your program when they're deciding between you and maybe 10 other programs. How do they know that this is where they want to be and that they might get the most out of this? And so here we see we're really talking about a professional web show. And so this description is meant to kind of pull in the audience that they want to see this presentation. Moving from there, you're going to be asked to fill out the learning objectives. Something to really think about with your learning objectives is really thinking about that outline and how they match with your learning objectives. This is where your audience and your reviewer can get a sense of, what is the person going to take away from being a part of this presentation. Sometimes if you have a highly interactive program, it may make sense to have a learning outcome be connection and networking, but also thinking about how folks might apply this to their institution and really taking some time to think through how can you really highlight some of the things that you might be working on within this proposal. So then we get to our outline. We're going to talk about this over a few slides. And so one of the things I really want to highlight here is some of the formatting in this outline. You see just a quick description of, what are we expecting from this session? The outline is going to be the largest chunk of your program proposal. And so kind of giving your reviewer a guide to, what do we want to see here? And you see 75% of this presentation is going to be true presentation versus 25% discussion. Kind of with that out of the gate, I would expect to see that reflected in the outline as we go forward. So you get kind of a nice overview, and then you have this bullet point format kind of giving us a quick idea of what each section is, but with some detail. A pro tip is definitely the timestamps. I think that can give you as a presenter some really good ideas about how you would want to work through material and being realistic with yourself about what is truly feasible. Can you do introductions in 2 minutes? What does that look like? But also helps those of us reviewing kind of get a sense of how does the flow of this going to work? What is going to be highlighted? What's going to be talked about? And how can we expect the audience to be included, and what kind of discussions you're going to have during that. Going on to the next slide, you see an additional piece of the outline. Here we have kind of this idea of we want to talk about applications for 10 minutes. And then you'll notice that they've included a list of what are those applications underneath it with more description. This again gives us a sense of how are those 10 minutes going to be broken up? What can the audience expect? And what do you as a presenter see as feasible topics to be covering with some good explanation of what that looks like? And so highlighting those is really great. One of the things I highly recommend to anybody putting in an abstract, it's oftentimes helpful to outline your proposal maybe in like a Word document in advance. One thing I will say is when you put it over into the abstract, all of your formatting goes away. So just know that you're going to do a little bit of work there to do the indents, but they can be really helpful for those who are reading it to kind of understand what you're planning for that session. And then we see the closeout at the outline, those last 10 minutes, kind of the show time of what are we gonna demonstrate? How are we gonna show the audience? And then this last chunk where we see conclusion of we're gonna have this discussion that we assume is gonna be about 12 minutes. For this particular outline, we saw that come at the end. For other outlines, this might be scattered throughout. And so if you have that audience participation, include that as well, and kind of some ideas of what that time chunk might look like. If you have some processing questions that you're going to include in that, that's also a good idea to include in your abstract. It gives us a good idea of what you're thinking. So when we think about that kind of scoring process, again, we're really looking for a few things, thinking about the topic. Is it relevant? Is it unique? Is it something that seems like it's needed currently in the field? And these are things that sometimes in the fall, you have a really good idea. And as we get closer to the conference, you may have some things that are developing. So if you're working on something that is going to kind of come to fruition throughout your academic year, it might be an interesting topic to think about how that might roll into a proposal and how you might be gaining information about it as you approach the conference. Thinking about that title, being descriptive, and really knowing what that presentation is about, that's going to be really important as our reviewers are looking at things and kind of understanding what does this look like. Where it's possible, just avoiding being campus specific. And what we mean by that is avoiding something that is only applicable to one campus. If you have something that's really niche for your campus, it might be really interesting, but how can that be taken out and maybe utilized at other campuses? Or what is kind of the broader application of that? And then making sure that outline is detailed, it matches those learning objectives, and it meets the defined criteria and is thought through. And I will switch over to Holly for a quick demonstration. So bear with us as we stop sharing and reshare.
So I'm going to share a couple screens just so you can kind of see where you're going to get things. So the first screen that I'm going to share, hopefully you've seen before. And hopefully you see it now. Amanda, can you see it? Okay, good. So this is the Campus Home Live landing page. You can see all the way down to the bottom here, there's a sub tab that says 2024 Call for Programs. You're going to want to click that because it takes you to the area where you can go to the button that will take you to the call for proposal. Before you do that, I would download the proposal assistance guide, which we mentioned earlier, that talks about some of the areas that you will want to kind of think through before you do your submission. it doesn't have the entire application, but it has those areas that kind of stop people up a little bit because they may be confusing. So make sure that you reference that. Once you're ready, you're going to click on the Submit Your Proposal button, and that is going to take you to our membership database where basically you do all the things, right? You purchase things, you register for things, you submit things. So I brought up a fictitious account so you can see what it looks like once you've logged in. Morgan Freeman is not a member of Akuai, although we wish that he was. Can we see this page, Amanda? Okay, good. All right, so Morgan is logged in. You can see here that it says 2024 Campus Home Live. It has our description. So where do you get the call for proposals? You click on Presenter Service Center. You go down to Create New Program Proposal. Click on that. It is not letting me log in. Hold on a second. That was not planned.
This is a great moment.
This is a great moment. I swear it worked before. Okie dokie. Let's go, Morgan.
Morgan Freeman may need to update his member profile.
Correct. That is correct. Let me try this again. All right. Oh, goodness. So I am logging into the portal as we often do when we do Akuai things. Let's go back here. 24 Campus Home Live. All right, we're gonna give this another try. Okay, so Morgan logged in. Hopefully y'all can see that.
You can see it.
Okay, Presenter Service Center. Create new program proposal. So that worked. The first thing that you're going to need to do is you're going to need to review kind of your profile information so you can see organization, job title, all that good stuff that everyone does when they become a member. And from time to time, we ask you to update. You'll save your changes once you review it. The loading will occur. And then it will take you right into the process abstract. You can see all those areas that correspond with the guide that I pointed out earlier. So title, you are able to you are able to submit on behalf of another person. So if there's someone on your team that has said, hey, I'd love to submit your submission for you, they can do that. They would just click that box. That would take care of that. They'd enter some information. You can also submit on behalf of your co-author team. A co-author is the same thing as a co-presenter. So you would click that. And then you'd be able to add your co-authors one by one. And then it goes into kind of those meaty parts for the actual abstract. So your learning objective 1, 2, 3, the session type. So going through all the different types. So a standard panel, a pre-conference session, roundtables, standard interest session. And you can kind of go into that and select what's best fits your program. Session description, outline, all that good stuff that will help the committee really understand what your program is and how you're going to go about delivering that information. And then it gets into more of the nitty gritty of, what you're actually having to offer certain audiences. So how much experience do you have? Who's the target audience? Topic area. You'll see all those topic areas that I pointed out earlier in the presentation. Core competencies 1 and 2 that Amanda pointed out. You'll see this area here, which basically says, hey, like we're doing CEs. If you are accepted, pick the bucket that best applies. So you'll do that piece. And then we ask a question to help us really understand kind of what we have available for delegates that may be coming from outside of North America. So we ask you to tell us whether this would be a program that is well suited or particularly well suited for global delegates. And finally, really, really important, we get this question every year a lot. If you do get accepted to present, you do need to register for the conference, and every person on your presenting team, your co-presenters or co-authors, everyone has to register. So this is just a little kind of reminder area to make sure that, before you kind of get your heart set on coming to Milwaukee, you need to register. You'll need to say, I agree to kind of finish off your proposal. So that is in its entirety in terms of the call for proposal abstract. The other question that we get quite often that I wanted to throw out there is, please do not do drafts. Drafts do not work very well with the system. So we highly recommend that log in, take a look at the abstract, build out your presentation in a Word document, save it, and then copy and paste it in. You can see all the different character limits and word limits. You can plan ahead. And that way you won't lose anything. We don't like when people lose things. It makes people sad. So please make sure you do that. Do not rely on drafts. And hopefully you submit a great proposal.
Amazing. We will do a quick swap. It doesn't help when I click closed captioning and not the thing I was aiming for. All right, we should be back. And ironically, we'll be talking about program types. So as Holly referenced in the actual abstract, you'll be asked to think about what is the program type. Last year was one of the first years in a while that we've offered the ability for folks to submit a pre-conference session. And we had some amazing pre-cons last year for anybody who is at Campus Home Live 2023. So if you have 180 minutes, roughly 3 hours of content, we definitely encourage you to think about a pre-con. This is definitely an extended session. It will take place the Saturday before the conference begins, so kind of before that first day, but as an ability to kind of share a lot more in depth on a topic. And so giving maybe more of a workshop format, there should be really a lot of interaction during this time frame because it is a very long period of time, but can really be a really nice meaty way to really dive into something that maybe needs more time than a 50-minute session would allow. We then have our interest session, which is kind of your standard 50-minute session where you have some time for introductions in the beginning, save time for questions at the end. You can make this an interactive session, but it is really about that 50-minute time block. And then we have roundtables. Roundtables are really meant to be discussions. And so if you choose a roundtable, still include your outline of some of the questions and the topics you want to cover. But things to recognize about a roundtable, oftentimes if you've submitted a roundtable, when we slate you into a room for the conference, there might not be technology in that space because these are really designed to be discussions, to maybe have some like flip charts where you're taking notes, but really not meant to be a full-fledged presentation. And so if you are thinking about kind of a hybrid presentation roundtable, that might be better suited for an interest session or even one of the panels. And so think about if it's something you really just want to have a conversation about a topic and be able to truly be in that conversation. Roundtable might be perfect for you. And then obviously panel as our last topic area, really focused more on having a group of people who might be answering questions or going through a topic. Knowing that it's a panel allows us to think about the room that you might utilize and being able to set you up with a panel, and the types of microphones and AV you might need to go along with that. And so really think about those program types and what's going to be best suited as you really work through that outline. And sometimes taking time to think about those time frames you might need to talk about things might help you determine where you need to be in your program type. Oh. So some quick tips and tricks before we close out. Definitely think about how you make your presentation unique. This might be in the way that you're actively including your participants. It might be in some of your visuals. It might be the topic you're talking about, who is talking about it if you're doing a panel, but really thinking about how your presentation potentially stands out. And then thinking about that outline and really diving into it and thinking about what are those critical steps of what you want to accomplish during that session, whether it's 180 minutes of a pre-con or those 50 minutes for a roundtable interest session or a panel, and really diving into the meat of that. Providing multiple perspectives, like we've mentioned, where possible. If you have partners at other campuses that you know are doing similar things, being able to talk about that in a more broad scope. But if that's not the case and you have something that's more unique, really thinking about how that work can be utilized by others. How do you take that and share it with other groups in more of a, here is some of the standard practices we followed versus, focusing really on like, this is how and why it worked for us. Really thinking about how can that be maybe universal for some other folks. Providing data and outcomes to support your program is always helpful, especially as people are thinking about how do I bring this or what do I take from this for my campus? Understanding some of those impacts can really help people see that vision of how it might work for them. Thinking about timely issues and best practices, things that might be coming up a lot for your colleagues in your region, nationally or internationally, but also things that, you know are happening across different institutions or things that potentially folks are thinking about innovating within. And then thinking about that type of proposal, like we said, trust a Word document or whatever document you'd like to use. And then thinking about that copy and pasting into the abstract form so that you really have some time with it and you don't necessarily lose work if a session times out or if a draft doesn't save appropriately. And with that, we'll stop the recording and take some questions.